Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. Today we're going to talk about Mannix Monsters Maniacs. What is a Monsters Maniacs? Got some crinkly plastic for you. That is a Mannix Monsters Maniacs. Monsters Maniacs. He's cute, isn't he? Let's set him right there. These are knockoff toys. Knockoff wrestling toys from the 1990s. Not much is known about these. Not much is known about Mannix. Not much is known about the knockoff toys. I mean, any knockoff toys. It is an unknown country. If you try to go online and look up information on this stuff, good luck. There are people in online discussion groups that might have bits of knowledge, but do they really know what they're talking about, or are they just assuming things or guessing and acting as if they know what they're talking about? It's not like trying to look up Hasbro or Kenner or even companies these days like Azrak Hamway or Tomland. I remember back when you couldn't find any information about those companies. Now you can, but you can't find information on some of these knockoff manufacturers like Mannix. I don't even know if Mannix is a real company. That's actually a question. Collectors are not sure whether Mannix is real, or if it's just a name, kind of like a fake brand name that was put on some toys made by a company called MCT. I don't know. Well, let me greet you from the snowpocalypse. We are snowed in. The snow is 7 inches deep. We had a snow day at work, so I did not go to work. I do have to go in tomorrow for a half day. Whew, it's going to be fun driving in this stuff. Yikes. But that's the situation on the ground here in Missouri. We have deep snow, and we're snowed in, and I don't think it's going to melt for a few days because the temperature isn't going to get up there. By the time you see this, well, hopefully the snow will have melted, but how is the weather where you are? Are you snowed in this week? Have you been snowed in? Has it caused problems for you? This is among many shared nightmares that we're experiencing in recent days. This is one of our shared nightmares. Actually, as shared nightmares go, probably not the biggest deal in the world, but it's inconvenient nonetheless. Billy is doing okay. My cat Billy. I told you last time he was sick. He's certainly doing a lot better than he was a month ago. The last week of December, first week of January, it really blew up, and he was doing very poorly at that time. And he's a fragile cat, so roughly every 6 months, he has these flare-ups, and I have a heart attack, and I have to get it together and help my cat and bring him back to health and be his nurse. He's just a medically fragile little baby, and every few months he has a little spell, and I need to work with him and get him back to being healthy and comfortable. So that's what I'm doing, and he's doing much better now, but he's not 100% yet. I'm trying to get him to 100%, giving him medicine, taking care of him, keeping a watch on him, and hopefully this time of year is always rough on him. This late December into January, it's always a rough time for him for some reason. So I think there's an environmental element to it. He always has a problem this time of year. He usually gets depressed when there's a lot of snow, so I was concerned about this snowfall, but he seems to be handling it well. He's looking out the window at the snow. It doesn't seem to be bothering him, but in years past, he's gotten into a funk when it snows. He doesn't like looking out the window and seeing white. He doesn't like seeing his world change. So that's an update on my cat. What else can I update you on before we talk about this? I still have, of course, the concerns I had in my previous video where I was in a funk. Still am. I think a lot of people are. It's just hard to try to do something fun or frivolous when we're in times that are anything but fun, anything but frivolous. But I'm here to try to entertain you any way I can within reason. And hopefully you are entertained by little plastic monsters, because that's what this show is all about. So I hope you're in the right place. That Phantom of the Opera video last week, that did not go over well. That didn't get very many views. I guess people don't like the Andrew Lloyd Webber Phantom of the Opera. Oh well, not everyone can be a winner. But I don't want to just every week talk about, I don't know, Ahai, Lincoln, Tomlin, Migo, Aurora, Ben Cooper, whatever, that gets old. Covering the same dozen toy lines again and again and again. I want some variety. I want to show you things maybe you haven't seen before, or maybe you've seen them here or there, but you don't know much about them, haven't given them much thought, and maybe you'll become fascinated with a toy line that never really interested you that much before, but something will spark an interest, seeing it being legitimized by being on this show. Okay, that's our update for the week. Now let's talk about Mannix Monsters Maniacs. Look at this cute little guy. He is obviously based on Oliver Reed's Curse of the Werewolf, the Hammer movie. If my fingers look a little weird, it's freezing in snow, and they're red and chaffed and blah. So excuse me if they look a little red, but it's winter. Anyway, so look at this fellow. Look at that guy. He's ready for the ring. I guess he's ready to meet El Santo. He is neat. Look at that bizarre little logo there, that action figure logo. That is weird. And all of the monsters, all of the cards in this series have the same artwork. With this version, there's another version we're going to see later. This version, these cards, they all have the same artwork. That sad-looking Curse of the Werewolf. Why is he so sad? Where did they get that? Is it some kind of early computer art from the 90s, or is it based on a mask or a sculpture? I don't know. Got a full moon there. Monsters Maniacs. Get them before they get you. No maker's mark. It just is made in China. There's a sticker on the back. PMS International. Okay. PMS. And it says it's from the UK. All right. PMS UK. PMS from the UK. Well, something about this Wolfman I wanted to mention, or this werewolf. There was a time when the Hammer werewolf got a little flurry of merchandise, like this guy. He's obviously based on the Hammer Curse of the Werewolf. This is a claw machine prize. And there was a candle around the same time that had a sculpt very similar to this head. And I have that candle, but I can't find it. I wanted to show it in a previous episode, and I couldn't find it. I don't know where it is, but it's the same head, basically, but bigger. Roughly the same sculpt. So this little stuffed guy was made for claw machines, where you put the money in and you try to maneuver a claw to come down and pick up a toy for you. And I don't know what year he was made. Let's see if it says something here. 1998. Very interesting. Play by Plays, the company. Play by Play, made in China. Play by, is it Pay? No, Play by Play, Toys and Novelties, 1998. That date is important, 1998. So there was something going on with that, and then a little bit later with the X1X Curse of the Werewolf toys. There was this little, I don't know what to call it. There's not exactly a wave, but there was a period, late 90s, early 2000s, when there were a few Curse of the Werewolf toys for the first time ever. There had never been Curse of the Werewolf toys before. None of them were licensed by Hammer. All of them kind of assumed in one way or another that the character was in the public domain, I guess. It isn't, but I mean, it's owned by Universal, which distributed that movie, made by Hammer, of course, in the UK, but through a joint production agreement with Universal and distributed in the US by Universal. So really, if you want to make a Curse of the Werewolf figure, you got to go through Universal, and you got to talk, I was going to say the Oliver Reed estate, but I've heard that maybe there is no entity managing the Oliver Reed estate, so it's tricky. Trick or Treat Studios did make a licensed Curse of the Werewolf mask, as did Hammer itself. So there are some licensed products for that, and there's a rubber ducky. So there's a little bit of licensed stuff for that movie. But at the time these things were made, I think these companies either thought it was in the public domain or they just didn't care. Because as you'll see, they were knocking everything off. I don't think they could care less about copyright. They were just knocking off whatever they wanted to knock off. But this thing kind of fits into that broader spectrum of unlicensed Curse of the Werewolf toys. This is the remake of Curse of the Werewolf when he gets into the ring. This time it's personal. Let's talk about Mannix. We don't really know if there was even a company called Mannix, or if it was simply a fake brand name that another company put on some toys. Let's assume it was a real company. There was a Mannix Company Limited that had offices in New York and the UK, so there was something that it was a toy company, and it seems to be no more at this point. At least those offices have closed. Mannix made a series of knockoff wrestling figures called International Wrestling Champions. They were knockoffs of Hasbro's WWF wrestling figures. And these wrestling toys made by Mannix, at least one version of them on the card, they have a Mannix logo. And they share parts with these monsters. So some of the parts you see on these monster figures were used originally on these knockoff wrestlers. There's at least two versions of the cards for these wrestlers. One says Mannix on it, and the other says Me-See, M-E-E-S-E-E, Me-See. Are either of them real companies or just fake brand names? Like these don't even have a company name on them at all, except on the back, this PMS, I think that's a distributor. That's not a manufacturer. I think that's a distributor in the UK. Mannix made a ton of knockoff toys. Let's just call them all Mannix for the time being. At least 44 different toy lines. Some of these are over top man, not over the top, but just over top man. Monster Warriors, Monster Man, Two-Face Monster, Vikings, Mighty Sharks, Skeleton Fighters, and my favorite, Apes Attacks. Not Apes Attack, not Ape Attacks, Apes Attacks. Kind of like Monsters Maniacs. These ape figures are knockoffs of the Planet of the Apes. Obviously, they have heads that look like the original series of Planet of the Apes characters, not the later CGI ones, the Roddy McDowall series. But they're sort of cyberpunk, dystopian kind of post-apocalyptic Planet of the Apes. And you would say, well, isn't Planet of the Apes already post-apocalyptic? Well, more like a 1980s Italian road warrior knockoff exploitation film, post-apocalyptic. And if that name, Apes Attacks, and some of the card art, it reminds me of Mars Attacks. So if I were going to collect another Mannix line, I think I would go for the Apes Attacks. There are different card styles, and there's only one that I really like, and I'm sure it's the hardest one to collect. And we were talking about Billy. He's sitting down there. Doesn't look relaxed. I hope I would feel better if he just kind of relaxed and leaned back. It would make me feel better if he looks kind of tense, but he's right there. Mannix produced these toy lines from 1992 to 2002, and it's likely that these Monsters Maniacs were made in 1998. People used to say 93, 94, or something like that, but it's more likely that they're from 1998, the same year as that stuffed toy I just showed you, because that was the year that McFarlane Toys premiered their Movie Maniacs line. We'll see those someday on this show, but that is a famous and influential line of horror action figures, really the first time that modern horror characters like Freddy and Jason and Michael Myers, Candyman, the first time those kinds of characters were present on toy store shelves, at least in any sort of big way from a mainstream company. That was a new thing at the time. Those kinds of very modern slashers as action figures, and it was a big deal, and it was very successful in the 90s. 1998 was the first year for Series 1 of McFarlane Movie Maniacs, and since these are knockoff toys, they had to be knocking off something. I don't think Mannix was sitting around thinking, what do we call these? Oh, I think Monsters Maniacs sounds good. No, they were trying to copy something. So what would they be copying? The popular thing at the time. McFarlane, Monster Maniacs, Movie Maniacs. And we'll see the character selection in a moment. It makes even more sense. Now, if Mannix isn't a real company, and I'm not saying it's not, just from what I've read online, it's difficult to get any information on any of this, or in the whole knockoff toy realm. It's very difficult to get any solid information on these companies, the years they were in business, where they were based, who were the major players running them, who designed them, the toys, or did the artwork, or anything, or what year did these things even come out? We don't even know that for sure. I'm guessing 98 because of the McFarlane connection. But I don't know. It's all a guess. So someone goes online and puts two and two together and makes some educated guesses, and that becomes the accepted truth until something more definitive comes along. But if Mannix didn't make these, if Mannix is a make-believe company, just like a brand name, then who made them? Probably a company called MCT. MCT. MCT was a distributor for cheap rack toys for discount store chains, dollar stores in the United States. So how do they end up making toys? Well, I mean, if they were a distributor, they might have commissioned some toy lines from some Chinese manufacturers. It's all speculation. And we don't know that MCT made these. We don't know anything. It's all a mystery. It's a big mystery. Now, while I would say these are the first time we had these kinds of toys, wrestler monsters like this, I want to acknowledge that in 2018, Funko, of all companies, Funko made a series of Masters of the Universe style slasher characters called Savage World. And that line included characters like Jason and Freddy and Leatherface and Pinhead. And I remember when those were in stores, and you can get, still to this day online, you can get them at original retail price. So they're still available, not in stores anymore, but you can get them online. And, you know, they're kind of cool. And not cool enough for me to buy at the time, although I'm still thinking, should I have those? I don't know. But when I saw them, they reminded me of these. Even though they're supposed to be Masters of the Universe, not wrestlers, I remember a lot of people at the time called them monster wrestlers. They kind of looked like that. They're actually supposed to be He-Man, Masters of the Universe knockoffs. The monsters, the modern slasher characters, envisioned as He-Man characters in that format. But it made me, when I saw those, it made me think of the Monsters Maniacs. I said, you're not the first to do something like that, Funko. Let's take a look at some different characters. We've been focusing on this one for a while. Let's take a look at another one. Let's get the more traditional characters out of the way first, which shouldn't be hard because I think there's only two universal style characters. This is a Frankenstein. Same card. They all have the same card. And I have not found legit names for these things. You know, individual character names. I mean, not obviously the line is Monsters Maniacs, but what are these characters called? I did see a post online that had a list of names, and I don't know where those names came from. I'm only aware of 2 card styles for this line, and I'll show you pictures of the other card style in a little bit. And neither of those card styles have names on them. Neither of them have anything on the back. both of them just have a sticker like this, only the other card style has a sticker from Argentina. This one has a UK sticker, but I don't know where those characters' names came from or if they're legit. Nah, I didn't write them down. I don't know if they're real or someone's just making it up, or where do those names come from. That's a mean-looking Frankie. He's an angry Frankie. Of course, he's a wrestler. And he's got his little weapon there. Each of these have one weapon. But that other style I'm going to show you in a bit, those have two weapons. So this is the Frankenstein. Now let's get into the less traditional, more modern characters. Here's Jason. Doesn't look like Jason. You know, it could be... What's that rock band? Isn't there a heavy metal mascot that's got a metal mask like that? But most people call this one Jason. They think it's supposed to represent Jason. But it has a metal mask. So I don't know. Given that the rest of these are all movie characters, knockoffs of movie characters, I think it's safe to say this is a Jason knockoff. But it's a wrestling Jason, so he's got white hair and this interesting costume. And like I said, these bodies are all shared by that other wrestling line that Mannix made. And I imagine there are other Mannix toy lines that have the same bodies, but I know those wrestlers do. They have the same parts, but not the heads. The heads are unique to this line. And even though he's a wrestler, he's got a weapon. He's got a pretty formidable weapon there. It looks like something Mr. Freeze would have. Pretty cool. Pretty nice line of toys, actually. Just want to look at that mask. Yeah, that is a... that's not like something from an asylum. That is a hockey mask. It's even got a little triangle, you know, like Jason's mask. So that is a hockey mask. So that is supposed to be Jason. Okay, this. You gotta drink when I say okay. It's a drinking game here. This is Blade from the Puppet Master films. And collectors used to call this character the Witch Doctor, but I don't think we didn't make, as a community, the collecting community didn't make the connection to Puppet Master very quickly, because that character wasn't merchandised very much years and years ago. Now it is, so you jump to that conclusion a lot faster, but that's obviously Blade from the Puppet Master films. But he does kind of look like a witch doctor or a voodoo priest or something like that, doesn't he? You know, he looks like he'd be fighting James Bond in Live and Let Die. I think it's the vest he's wearing. But no, he's Blade from Puppet Master. With a big old gun. This was the last one that I bought. And he used to be the most common one. But now, I don't know if I'd call any of them common. This one, oh, it used to be you would see sellers online with a dozen of just him, all for sale, like $100 for all of them, or some crazy. Maybe not a deal like that, but a cheap deal, like take them off my hands. Not now. Oh, I see his bubbles getting a little scrunched there. Oh boy, what else we got? There's only 6 of these, so it goes by fast. Most people say this is Leatherface. And I would agree, yes, this looks like it's supposed to be Leatherface. It's a blue-haired Leatherface. He's cute. I like his expression. He's got all that blood. He's definitely Leatherface. Is he the only bloody one? I'll check, but I think he is. I think he's the only bloody one. Interesting that they decided to use the werewolf as sort of the mascot for the entire series. He is neat. They're all neat. Last one, and this is generally, I think this is generally the most expensive one. Although, I mean, I like the werewolf, obviously. He's my favorite of the set. But this is Freddy, and I think if there's any price difference between them, I think he tends to be more money. Though lately, I don't really think there is much of a difference in price between them. Depending on where you find them, they're between $100 and $200 each. Right now, there is a seller on Etsy selling these at $200 each. And I've seen them higher, so that's not really a bad price. If you're just starting, you don't have any of them, then maybe that's not a great idea to spend $1,200 on all of these. But if you're just missing 1 or 2 and you want to finish the set, then that's probably a good way to do it. Get on Etsy and just cough up $200 each, if we're only talking about 1 or 2 figures. But if you're just starting, you don't have any of them, this is a strange line. It's one of those things where they might be $75 one day and $500 the next day. You just don't know. There's no telling. They're all over the place. There was a find recently. The guy who's on Etsy, at least, I think he's the guy who had them. He had a shipping case full of them. He's been selling them out of that case, selling them at $200 a pop. And I think they're selling. So I think he's maybe sold out of some characters. I'm not sure. So if you want them, this might be a good time to get them. Get on Etsy before that guy runs out. Because I've seen this before. There was a guy, I don't know what gender the seller was, but there was a person in Europe, I think it was in the UK, that had the same series on these cards for about the same price range, maybe a little less, maybe 100 something. I don't know if it was 200 each, maybe it was 100 something. And they had them for a while, and they also had a shipping box that they were selling out of. And then they exhausted that supply. And then for a couple of years, you couldn't find these. and they dried up, and then they came back. I think there must have been a small find that, the guy on Etsy was in on that somehow. So none of these came from that. I've had these, most of them, a long, long time. But this would be a good time if you want to get into them. It's probably a good idea to get on Etsy and go to that guy, and he's in the UK, I think, and get started, because I don't think they're going to go down. I could be wrong. Like I said, they're the kind of thing where you just never know. They could go up and down, whatever. Someone could find a whole pallet full of them tomorrow. Or they could dry up and then you won't see them again for years. Like the Underworld Warriors, that's the line that I like a lot. And it also has 6 characters. I've got 4 of the 6 on cards. And the 2 I don't have at the time were the most common ones. You could, if there were any that you would find easily, it would be those 2. So I saved those for last and got the harder to find ones, the other 4. And then when it was time to buy the final 2, they dried up. They disappeared. And now it's been years, and I've never seen those for sale on the style card that I collect. There's at least 3 different style cards for that series, but the one I collect is the English language Underworld Warriors. I'm missing the vampire and the witch, the blonde vampire and the witch. And 10 years ago, those would be your starter figures. Those were the easier ones to find. Now they're just gone. I mean, they're gone, because there were old store stock finds on those characters. So it was like, oh, they'll be around forever. Once that find was exhausted, they were gone. And now you just can't find them. Years pass and they don't show up on cards. They don't show up for sale. So this, I think, is a good time to buy these. You don't have to buy them from that one person, but that's the one I know about. But I think before they dry up again, this might be a good time to, if you want to get into these, this is probably a good time to do it. Now, I was telling you about another card style. I don't have any examples of that other card style, but luckily, my friend Andrew Williams, Dr. Andrew Williams, PhD, he is a legendary seller of monster toys. If you've gone to some major conventions and toy shows around the country, you will probably have run into Andy and his amazing tables full of vintage monster toys. He is the guy. If you want vintage monster toys, you see him at a show like Horror Hound, something like that. He sets up at Kane. I was going to say Kane County. He has set up there, but I meant to say Toy Man in the St. Louis area at Machinist Hall. Toy Man Toy Show. He often sets up there. So if you get to that show, you want someone to hook you up with amazing vintage monster toys, he can do it. And he was gracious enough to take some pictures of the Mannix Monsters Maniacs in his collection. He's got this version too, but he also has this other card style. So let's take a look at those. Andy has the werewolf, the Frankenstein, the puppet master, and Freddy on these alternate cards. I don't know which came first. I'm guessing these bigger, more elaborate cards that Andy has, I'm guessing those came first. And the more simplified cards followed. But I could be wrong. You see that they have the same name, Monsters Maniacs. They have the same full moon at the top of the card. Same strange little action figure logo and the Collect Them All logo. But other than that, everything else seems to be different First of all, the name Monsters Maniacs is styled after the famous Monsters of Filmland magazine logo. And it has what appear to be stolen photos inside the monster logo. So you see like that Frankenstein. I know I've seen that before. That's not from the movie. That is either a bust or a mask or a full-scale figure or something. And all these other images you see in that logo, I think they just went online. Even if it was in 1998, this stuff would have been out there. And I think they just swiped those images and stuck them in that logo. But it looks cool. It looks very cool. It's obviously much more elaborate than these cards that I have. The bubble is bigger and it's round on the top, and it has an insert, a cardboard insert at the bottom of the bubble, which is what you would find in a more upscale figure line, like something from Playmates. I don't know who that character is on the insert. He looks kind of like the X-Men or something. I don't know. It's kind of strange. These figures have 2 weapons each. Unlike the style that I showed you, the ones that Andy has on these bigger cards, they each have 2 weapons. The figures themselves are painted differently. Every character is painted completely differently. And not only that, but there are sculpt differences. They are sculpted differently. The arms and legs are different sculpts. With the arms particularly, you can tell they're thicker, more muscular, and the hands are shaped differently. I think the torso and maybe the heads could be the same sculpt. I'm not sure about that. But the arms and legs are certainly different. There's a sticker on the back for a Argentina-based toy distributor, but it's not the manufacturer, it's the distributor. Nowhere on these cards do we see the name Mannix. We have no idea who made these toys. We have to assume Mannix made them. If Mannix is even a real company, we don't even know that. Or maybe MCT, whatever that company is called, maybe they made them. We don't really know. We just know that there is a line of wrestling figures with that Mannix logo, and these figures have the same parts as those figures. I'm sure there are knockoff collectors out there screaming at me who know so much more about this than I do. Fantastic. Why don't you share your knowledge the way I'm trying to share this? Why don't you go online in some format where people can find it and share your knowledge? Don't hold your knowledge tight like Smaug hoarding his gold and then get upset if someone gets it wrong when they try to talk about these things, because I don't see much information at all, not only in this, but just on knockoff toys in general online. And I think that's part of the culture. I think that's part of the knockoff collecting culture, is to not share information. I've picked up on that because it is so obscure, and no one knows anything about these various weird toy lines. It's a whole different world. Trying to collect knockoff toys, very different. I mean, if you're just sort of collecting whatever strikes your fancy, oh, this knockoff toy looks cool, I think I'll buy that. Okay, then it's maybe not so stressful. But if you're trying to complete sets, and you don't even know what sets are out there, what characters are in the line, or who made them, how do you even search for something like that? Like on eBay, how do you search for it? It can be frustrating. And some of these things just never turn up. Now, these are actually, as knockoff toys go, more findable. There are knockoff sets out there that you just cannot find them. Out of a series of 6 or 8 characters, you could search for a decade to find 1 or 2 loose, maybe, not even carded. They're just impossible to find. So it's a very frustrating field of collecting, very challenging. And I think that breeds a kind of secrecy, a kind of underground quality, like a secret handshake, wink, wink, kind of a culture where if you do gain access to that stuff, you don't really want to share it or let it get out there. So I think it's a different culture than the more mainstream action figure collecting. I think it's a very different culture. And the only reason I dip my appendages into it to the extent that I do is because there are some cool monsters in the knockoff world, or in some of the 70s toys that I love. The Azrak Hamway toys are technically knockoffs. The Lincolns and the Tomlins are technically knockoffs. It's hard, when I think of knockoff, I think of this. I don't really think of the older stuff as knockoffs. I feel like that's a different world. That's a different era, a different world for toy manufacturing, different world for toy distribution and selling and marketing, and from a collecting standpoint, a different world. So I know they're technically knockoffs, those 70s toys, but I don't really think of them as knockoffs. I think of this. These are knockoffs. When I think of knockoff collecting, this is what I think of, this kind of stuff. Well, thank you, Andy Williams, for sharing those photos from your collection. Andy has a magnificent collection. I keep saying every time I bring him up, it'd be nice to do an episode from his house and look at his collection, show his collection to you, let you tour his beautiful collection. And I have a few other friends like that who just have mind-boggling collections, and they have them on display. I don't have my collection on display. This is the way I display my collection, through this. But they have their stuff on display. So it would be great to bring some cameras into their home and let you see, not like a montage with music or something. No. Stand there and have them stand there and talk about the different things and hold them up and discuss them. It would be fascinating. And maybe one day we'll have some episodes like that, whether it's Andy or other collectors I know. That's the story on Monsters Maniacs. I don't know what else to say about them. I don't know if there is very much to say. What is your favorite character? Mine is the werewolf. But they're all cute. I mean, there isn't a bad one in the bunch. But there's something for everyone. If you like classic monsters, if you like slashers, if you like something a little more oddball, like the Puppet Master, it has a lot of variety. It's a nice, well-rounded line with 6 characters. 8 would be nice. I can think of a couple more characters they could have added to this. But 6 is a good number. It's collectible in the sense that you can actually collect it. You can achieve a collection. There's only 6. And they're gettable. You're not going to spend your whole life trying to find just one. You can get these things. And as I said, right now, they're a little more gettable than they've been in the past. So this would be a good time if you're interested in collecting these. This is probably a good time to dive in. Don't wait a couple more years till they're gone, dried up again, and then you can't find them. They're out there right now. So I would suggest if you want to collect these, jump in there and get them while they're available. And before I go, I'm just curious. Yeah, I was looking at the bottom of his feet, and I was wondering, is there maybe information there? Nope. Now, if you've got some of these loose, let me know if there's anything on the back of these figures, because I mean, I don't open my toys. But there could be something on the backs of these figures that provides a clue as to who made them, when they were made. But for now, we're going to say that they're made by Mannix in 1998. That's the best information we have at this time. I think that's enough of Monsters Maniacs. I love that grammar, like apes attacks monsters maniacs. Not monster maniacs. Monsters Maniacs. Well, thank you for watching. Until next time, the one who dies with the most toys is dead.